So welcome to making a great impression. So arguably this is the most crucial step of the selling process, because the purpose of this stage is to get people to like you, trust you, and want to listen to you. Now many other selling systems call this stage making a great first impression. But the problem with calling it this is you could send a wrong message by making it sound like it's something you do at the start of every sale. You rock on up, extend your old hand out, big smile on your face, and hey presto, you have the meeting out of your hand. But the reality is, making a great impression should be something that you do throughout the relationship with your client. Because it's not just about being likable, it's also about being a trusted business partner as well. So how do you make a great impression with a prospect? Well, let's look at it from a buyer's perspective. Because studies have shown that what buyers want from salespeople are two things. They want to have competence and they want to have character. So what exactly is competence? Well, that's the ability to be able to do something successfully or efficiently. And in this case, that makes perfect sense. Because from a buyer's perspective, they're thinking, well, if I have to deal with a salesperson, they should at least bring some sort of expertise to the table. So how do you become an expert? Well, unfortunately, depending on the industry you're in, this could take many years. There's no kind of get-rich-quick scheme here. However, there are ways you can speed up the process. So you could apply yourself and you could study the history of your business. You could identify experts inside and outside of your business and then interview from their perspectives. You could study your competitors. And you could learn about the outliers. Now, it's easy to learn about your business's everyday situations and processes, but when you truly become an expert, this is when you take time to learn about the outliers. So over time, you're going to learn lots of information. So you're going to need to have a process that's going to allow you to easily store and retrieve all this information. Now, to do this, you could try something called chunk memory. Now, chunk memory is what allows grandmasters of chess to memorize up to 100,000 different moves. So chunk memory helps us kind of build a mental model of our domain and how it kind of functions as a system. So for example, what you do is you would break down your industry into smaller sort of bite-sized categories, like procedures, departments, product knowledge, competitors, etc. And then you could actually even have subcategories from here that you could drill even further to. So the mental model you have formed would provide a framework for hanging your ever-growing knowledge on. Also, having a mental model helps you distinguish between relevant and irrelevant information. And this is kind of no difference in how you would work your inbox. So you decide when emails come in, which ones you're going to delete and which ones you're going to file away. But one thing is for sure, if you adopt a systematic approach, in time, your knowledge and advantage over others will become large and you're going to become the go-to person within your organization. Welcome back. The other important thing that buyers were looking from a salesperson was character. Now, defining character is more subjective than defining competence, because one person's wine could be another person's poison. But for some of us, character can mean that we want to work with a salesperson who's enthusiastic and friendly, while others might see this as kind of off-putting, frivolous, or just being too forward. So in this section, we're going to look at something called the DISC, and this is going to help us learn about character and also how we can become a 4D salesperson. So what exactly is DISC? Well, DISC is an assessment test that provides insight into an individual's personality and behavioral characteristics. So essentially, we're trying to learn what makes us tick. Now, it's used by many thousands of businesses and organizations, and they use it to build better, maybe effective teamwork, improve working relationships, or to help salespeople connect better with their prospects. So what this essentially shows is there's kind of 4 different personality styles. There's the dominant, the influential, the steady, and the conscientious. And while everyone has each of the 4 styles, we usually fall in line more strongly with one particular style over another. Now, I'm going to cover each of the 4 personality styles, but I recommend that you learn the personality style that you lean more towards before I do that. So to do this, I want you to just jump on Google and search for free DISC profile. And you're going to find a questionnaire. And you'll be asked to pick the adjective that best applies to you. So for example, in gently, kindly, original, and inventive, all you're going to do is be asked to pick what's most like you and what's least like you. And then you're going to repeat this maybe for about 20 questions. But keep in mind, there's no right or wrong answer, and you should always go with your gut. Hopefully you've done your test and you know what style you lean more towards. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to cover each style with you. But a great tip here to kind of help you learn and retain each style characteristic is to try and imagine a person that you know most closely matches each personality style. This could be a boss, a co-worker, a friend, or a client of yours. So let's start with the D in DISC, which stands for dominant. Now, dominant people are self-starters and they thrive in both challenge and competition. They're usually very direct, positive, and straightforward. They tell it as it is, sometimes even bluntly. Dominant people like to take center stage and they aren't afraid of being in charge. They fight hard for what they believe in, they can accept momentary defeat, and they're not long-term grudge holders. So with dominant people, they're quite abrasive, and it's very easy from time to time to get into fights and argument with them. But one thing that's unusual about them is you get in a fight and argument and they'll have forgotten about it 5 minutes later. Now, does anybody you know matching these characteristics come to mind? So let's move on to the I in DISC, which stands for influential. Now, influential people are outgoing, persuasive and gregarious, and they strive to make their opinions and beliefs prevail. They're incredibly comfortable in one-on-one situations, and this kind of outgoing nature kind of typifies this image that we have of the so-called natural salesperson. They're easily met, and they're name-dropping conversationalists who sell themselves well. They're also very friendly competitors and optimistic managers. So let's move on to the S in DISC, which stands for steady. Now, steady people strive to keep things the way they are and dislike change, hence the name steady. However, once underway, they'll work very steadily and patiently. Now, most of the time, steady people are very even-tempered, low-key and unobtrusive. They're good at concealing their feelings from others, and they're apt to be long-term grudge holders. So we spoke about that dominant person, you can get in a fight with them, they've forgotten about it 5 minutes later. When on a steady person, you get in a fight with them, well, they might forgive you, but they won't forget. They can also be very possessive and develop strong attachments, for their things, their families and their department. Now, just like before, does anybody you know with these characteristics come to mind? Finally, we move on to the C in DISC, which stands for conscientious. Now, conscientious people are reserved, conservative, adaptable, open-minded, and diplomatic. They also like to proceed in an orderly way. Their methods are usually predetermined, they're very precise and attentive to detail. And conscientious people strive for a neat, orderly existence, and they follow traditional procedures and established systems. Because we each have our own personality style that we lean more towards, there is a risk that could make us very one-dimensional regarding our own selling style. So for instance, if you have a dominant style, you're probably going to be driven, straightforward and say what you think type of salesperson. And this is likely to be effective when dealing with other dominant style individuals. However, the predominant steady style individual, they might find your dominant approach to be too blunt or fast-paced. Or maybe you lean towards an influential style, then you're probably going to focus on getting to know your prospects on a very personal level. Now, a prospect who also tends towards the I style may appreciate your enthusiasm and friendliness. However, those who lean towards the conscientious style might find it off-putting, frivolous, or you just being too forward. However, if we could identify our prospect's predominant style and adapt our approach to best suit their style, this would effectively make us a 4-dimensional salesperson who could be all things to all people. So there's essentially 2 things that we need to learn to become a 4D salesperson. So one is, how do we recognize the predominant style in our prospect? And the second thing is, what do we exactly need to do to adjust our approach? So let's start with the dominant. How would we recognize a dominant individual? Well, dominant people have a very firm handshake, and they may not want to sit down, and they'd almost prefer to stand up and hover over us. And because of their straightforward nature, they want to get straight to the point, and they may come across as somewhat blunt or even more abrasive. Now, dominant people can be very impatient, and frustratingly, they just won't give us enough time to justify our value. But I think overall you're going to get a clear sense from this person that you're dealing with just wants to be the boss. So how do we adjust our approach? Well, firstly, we need to be direct and get straight to the point. Also want to be brief and speak up. And we want to avoid any long-winded presentations because they just don't have the patience for it. And we've got to refrain from repeating ourselves. We've got to respect their views and requirements, but we don't be afraid to have a bit of a backbone. Avoid focusing on them personally and stick to the facts at hand. And very important here, dominant people are strongly influenced by other people that they perceive as having a high status or power. So when possible, kind of use testimonials from other people that are well known in the industry. So how would we recognize an influential prospect? Well, influential prospects would generally come across as very friendly, social, talkative and extroverted. And they aren't afraid of being the centre of attention. Recognition is a key word for influential people. And because of this, they tend to be sharp dressers or very brand orientated. And you might be able to see this in what they wear or what they drive. So how we adjust our approach? Well, we got to allow them time to ask questions and talk. And we got to talk to them about their ideas and emotions and ask them what they're thinking and feeling. Let them vocalize what's working and what's not. We definitely don't want to interrupt them. We got to focus on the positive. And very important, avoid overloading them with details. Now, influential people aren't good with details, and there is a danger if you introduce too many details to them, you're going to take everything off in a tangent. So how will we recognize a steady prospect? Well, steady people may come across as somewhat reserved, non-emotional, and they tend to have a bit of a poker face, making them hard to read. Also, they might make it clear from the get-go that they're just looking, but overall you're getting a clear sense from this person that you're dealing with somebody who just doesn't want to be rushed. So how do you adjust your approach? Well, you got to be polite, personable, agreeable, and you got to take time to provide clarification. Avoid being confrontational or too aggressive. A key word for steady people is appreciation. So make them feel appreciated. Show them that you're interested in them as a person, and don't make your whole kind of sales pitch feel too transactional. Also make it clear from the get-go that you value their relationship over anything else. And finally, try to avoid using any impending doom closing techniques. So how would you recognize a conscientious prospect? Well, conscientious prospects tend to come across as neat, tidy and organised. They're also very open-minded and diplomatic. They might even ask you, why should I buy off you as opposed to somebody else? And even though they're knowledgeable and well researched, they will ask you lots of questions to compare and test your subject knowledge. And salespeople who don't measure up will rarely get the sale. So how do we adjust our approach? Well, we've got to allow time to get to know each other better and avoid any misunderstandings. Also, we've got to be patient and diplomatic. And we've got to make sure that we give them as much information as possible. Focus on the facts and details. Where a dominant personality style only wanted the bullet points, a conscientious person will crave the detail and will want to know all the reasons why. You want to give them as much information from your verbal pitch and writing, and knowing that they can review all the documents later on, it helps them make an informed decision and puts a conscientious person's mind at ease. In previous sections, we learned about competence and character. And when you add these two together, you get trust. Now, trust is the most potent weapon in any salesperson's arsenal. And that's because people are influenced to change by people that they trust. Now, trust can be hard to find at the beginning of any business relationship. So where exactly is trust hiding? So of course, it's got to be here somewhere. So let's look inside our brain. Now, the brain is broken into 3 distinct sections. So first of all, you've got the reptilian brain, you got the limbic system, and you got the neocortex. So let's start with the reptilian brain, which evolved around maybe 600 million years ago when the first kind of reptiles crawled onto the land. And it's connected straight to our central nervous system. And it's responsible for all our unconscious functions, like breathing, digestion, heart rate. It's also a cognitive miser, whose job is to save energy by acting as a filter. So if it's not dangerous, it's told to ignore it. And if it's not new and exciting, it's told to ignore it as well. And if it is new, it wants to summarize as quickly as possible and forget about all the details. It also only likes to react when something is fast, novel, visual, concrete, or high contrast. So for example, publicists will take full advantage of this with advertising specifically designed to get the attention of the reptilian brain. So just look at any publication and you'll see many examples of visual or high contrast advertising. But one advertising concept that we're most familiar with is called sex sales, which is also a reactive part of the reptilian brain. The next significant section of our brain is the limbic system, and it first appeared in mammals around 60 million years ago. And this is the part of the brain that's involved in our behavioural and emotional responses, especially regarding behaviours such as survival, feeding, reproduction, and caring for our young. So a reptile's strategy is to lay as many eggs as possible and hope for the best. A mammal will have fewer offsprings, but it will take care of its young, hoping that this offspring may have a bigger chance of making to maturity. And that's what reptilian brain does. It allows us to care for our young, which is what reptiles don't have. Finally, we move on to the neocortex, which is part of the mammalian brain involved in higher order functions such as hearing, smell and sight. That's broken into 2 parts. There's a left hemisphere and there's a right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is more of our logical side of our brain and it's linked to competence. It controls speech comprehension, arithmetics and writing. And it also craves information and it always wants more. On the other hand, you have the right hemisphere, and that's the more our emotional side of our brain. And this is the one that's linked to character. And it's responsible for creativity, spatial ability, artistic and musical skills. It's also part of the brain responsible for trust and decision making. And it does this through intuition, emotion and experiences. Now, using what we've learned so far about competence and character will definitely help us with some of the criteria the right brain uses to form trust and make decisions. But we're going to need to do a little bit more if we really want to earn our prospects' trust and properly connect with the right hemisphere part of the brain. Now, to do that, let's visit the reptilian brain again. Now, as I mentioned beforehand, it's a cognitive miser. And it's pre-programmed to be indifferent or ignore. So it's no different than, let's say, you're going to take a flight somewhere and you make your way to the airport and then you go through the terminal and then you check in and you go to the other side, you board the flight, and then eventually when you land the other side, you realise that you've barely spoken to anybody. You probably didn't even acknowledge the existence of the person sitting beside you on the flight. And that is the reptilian brain at work. So it has a basic operating instructions and it says, do not send anything to the neocortex for problem solving unless you have an unexpected situation or something out of the ordinary. So when we first meet somebody, we need to send the right signal to get ourselves classed as something out of the ordinary. So how do we do that? Well, we can start with a smile. And then we've got to make sure that we're smiling with our eyes as well. And we need to use plenty of eye contact, the old no weapons hands gesture, or even be descriptive with our hands as well. Essentially, we're trying to say, look at me, I'm something interesting. Now, hopefully the reptilian brain has a conversation with the neocortex to say, I've got something interesting for you. And when this happens, we now have an opportunity to start connecting with the right hemisphere part of the brain. So the first one I have for you is comfortable conversation. And of course, this is the art of making small talk. And for some people, talking about the weather or other sort of rather mundane things can be a bit tricky. So a great way to get comfortable conversation is by asking questions about your prospect, because we all know our favourite subject is me. The next one I have for you is common ground. And as they say, birds of a feather flock together. And in most sales situations, a prospect will put kind of an invisible wall between themselves and a salesperson. So learning something about your prospect that you both have in common will help to lower this barrier and make sure you connect better with them. And this could be as simple as learning that both your parents or both support the same football team, or you're interested in the same hobbies. But the more common ground, the lower the barrier, the greater you'll connect. So the next one I have for you is empathy. So that's being able to put yourself in another person's shoes without getting emotionally involved. So for example, if you sold cars for a living and you had a client who had 5 children and needed a 7-passenger seating. Now in addition to this, they needed to be affordable as well, because we all know supporting a family of 7 isn't cheap. Now you may not have 5 children yourself, but you can empathise with your client why an affordable 7-passenger seating vehicle is essential to them. So by being empathetic with your prospect, you're guaranteed you're going to get better results for both you and your prospect. So the next one I have for you is humour. And like making small talk, not everybody's good at this one. But if you have it, it's a great way to break the ice and provide comedic relief when you first meet somebody. So the next one I'm going to cover is strategic mimicry, also known as mirroring. Now human beings are natural mimickers, and without realising it, we often mirror back other people's body language, accents, speech patterns, or facial expressions. And we do this at an unconscious level, because we have mirror neurons working inside of us, and their primary job is to help us fit in with our environment. So human beings are social animals, and it's essential to our health and our well-being that we fit in or accept by other people. And we do this unconsciously, and we mimic those around us. It's a bit like, monkey sees, monkey does. So not everybody is comfortable with the thought of mirroring, but given time in any social situation, it's going to happen naturally. However, it is essential that if you do it, make sure you do it very subtly, so the other person doesn't notice, otherwise it could backfire on you. Another way of mimicking your prospect is by mirroring your prospect's predominant style as well. So for example, if you're dealing with a dominant personality style, then we know their tone is usually loud, very fast paced, and they have very domineering body language. So if we wanted to mirror a high D prospect, then we know we got to talk a little bit faster, talk a bit louder, be more direct, stand up straighter, and even puff our chests out. However, when mirroring an influential style, then we know their tone is going to be much more fun and outgoing. So our pace needs to be fast and exciting. Our body language has got to be very expressive, and we've got to use plenty of hand movements as well. If we're dealing with a steady styled individual, we know our tone's got to be a bit softer, a little bit more relaxed. Our pace has got to be slower, and our body language should also be friendly and relaxed as well. And then finally, when mirroring conscientious style, our tone should be very informative, but neither loud nor soft. Our pace needs to show patience, and it's okay to take your time. And then finally, your body language should be focused on your prospect by looking them in the eyes and listening intently. So the next one on my list is transparency. Now, top salespeople understand there's going to be a natural distrust from the buyer, but they're prepared to take full responsibility for this by backing up all the claims they make in some sort of proof in writing. So here's a few tips for you that's going to help you put your client's mind at ease and create better transparency. So the first one I have for you is, create a binder or a tablet so you can back up all the claims that you make during your presentations. Now, in addition to this, just don't wait to deduce these when you're challenged. You should incorporate them into any part of the presentations you make. The next one I have for you is never negotiate with words, write all your negotiations down on paper. Or you should never ask for the closing words, use your offer. This is a very powerful one where you take your offer, you slide it over to your prospect, have them browse through it, and then you ask for the close. Another one that's very important is never make verbal promises, put all your assurances in writing. And this could be as simple as taking out your email, write an email in front of your prospect, assuring them there and then send it to them will put their mind at ease. And then finally, when face-to-face with a prospect, make sure you turn your monitor around to them so they can see what's on your screen. So finally, we're going to move on to tonality. Now, why don't you put your customer hat on for a moment and imagine how would you feel if you were dealing with a salesperson that kind of sounded bored, irritated, disinterested when you needed their help. Now, they could be saying all the right things, but if their voice suggests otherwise, you won't be sold on them or what they're offering. So for example, actors spent many years perfecting tonality, and they learned skills like dialogue delivery, projection, articulation, and phasing. And all of these are essential to communicate the spoken word with their audience. So mastering your tone is an integral part of connecting with others. And once you learn how to control it, you're going to be well underway to making great connections with your clients and your prospects. Welcome back. Whether we like it or not, there's always going to be a natural mistrust from the buyer. And that's because we've got a vested interest in selling them something. So when surveyed, pushy, dishonest, sleazy, difficult are just some of the adjectives used to describe salespeople. So let's face it, most people have a fear of being taken advantage. So from the second we first meet the prospect, the chances are we're going to be up against it. My sales career started in automotive, and as you can imagine, there's not a lot of trust afforded to people who sell cars for a living. It can be a bit of an uphill battle from the moment they meet you. So one of the things I learned in automotive was to sell on the seat and not on your feet. So it's okay to meet and greet on your feet, and in fact, walk arounds help your words make them more entertaining, help capture the prospect's attention. But once you get the prospect seated, it tells them that it's time to begin the business end of the process. Now to do this, I was taught how to make a favorable approach, and this would normally involve, using comfortable conversation, finding common ground, and asking plenty of open-ended questions. And then once I felt a certain level of rapport was being achieved, I would invite them into my office. So although building rapport is massively important, and it definitely helped me with getting a customer comfortable and into the office, I knew I needed a lot more if I ever wanted to be a trusted business partner as well. And this is where competence and character plays such a big role, because ultimately this is what our client wants from us. They want to have expertise. They want to deal with somebody who can help them achieve their goals or make the whole process as painless as possible. As I mentioned beforehand, there's no quick fix to become an expert. There's just processes that help you get there sooner rather than later. Like learning about the outliers or using chunk memory to build a mental model of how your domain works as a system. I remember when I was a salesperson and at the top of my game, and on the odd occasion, I would lose a sale to another salesperson. Now, my reaction wasn't to feel betrayed or feel sorry for himself for losing out on a commission. In fact, my reaction was to feel sorry for the customer. Sorry that they wouldn't get to deal with me, avail of my expertise, and no matter what might crop up, having someone there with the experience and knowledge to be able to guide them through the whole process and make the whole thing as painless as possible. So they weren't just buying a product or a service, they were actually getting the Paul Ferguson experience as well. And this was the confidence I had in my ability, and this came across loud and clear to the most people I dealt with. So as we've seen previously, learning how to become a 4D salesperson requires an understanding of the 4 different personality types. But most importantly, the flexibility to adjust your approach. Now, this has served me very well over the years, because I remember I used to get really aggravated when dealing with a dominant personality type, with their bossy nature or never giving you a chance to justify your value. Or taking it really personal when an influential customer goes from your best friend 1 minute to your worst enemy the next minute, all because of some unforeseen delay or a setback that was beyond your control. Becoming a 4D salesperson not only taught me how to be flexible and collaborate with others, but mainly nobody's perfect, including myself. And we all come with our pluses and minuses. And as top salespeople, it's our job to deliver the level of service that our customer needs. And if this means that we got to be all things to all people, then so be it. So sales is not about me trying to make a quick buck. It's about collaboration, building trust, and forming meaningful relationships with others. And if you do this, you will become a trusted business partner and an influence for change. Welcome to Making a Great First Impressions Helpful Practice Activities. Here you'll find some practical activities that will help you better personalize the sales process. As always, you'll find a copy of these activities in the company 4D Selling Sales book. The following activities will help you in better connecting with others. So the first exercise is all about becoming an expert. And this exercise will help you gain expertise by understanding how your domain functions as a system. So what I want you to do is just very simply map out all the departments within your organization, what function they perform, then find a mentor in each department who will give you valuable insight on how their departments work and how they run. The next exercise is all about understanding yourself and others. So if you haven't done so already, take a free DISC test and find out which personality style you lean more towards. If you really want to understand others, you should first know who you are. A link to a free test can be found in the company sales book, or simply Google free DISC test. Another effective exercise for understanding yourself and others is to identify people that you know most closely match each personality style. This could be a boss, a co-worker, a friend, or a client of yours. So in the first one, we want to try and identify who a dominant person is. And as you'll remember, these are people who are very highly driven, straight talking, love taking control, and like being the boss. So I want you to imagine somebody who you know most closely matches this. Now we want to try and imagine an influential person that you know. And these people generally will be very friendly, sociable, talkative, extroverted, and they like to be the life and soul of the party. So again, can you imagine somebody that you know that is very much like this? Same with steady. These are, of course, the people that are very stable, even-tempered, sympathetic, and don't like change. And then finally, let's try and think of somebody who's conscientious, somebody who you know that's going to fit into this. And these people are very analytical, systematic, careful about decisions, and love sticking to the rules. And finally, we're going to move into about connecting better with others. So what I want you to do is every time you meet somebody new, practice a few of the following right brain techniques to help better connect with them. So the first thing you want to do is maybe practice with them trying to attain common ground. And this, of course, is finding out together what you both have in common. As they say, birds of a feather flock together. The next thing you should practice is empathy. And that's being able to put yourself in another person's shoes and then look at it from their perspective. Another good one to have in your locker is comfortable conversation. So if you are stuck for something to talk about, always remember that everybody's favourite subject is themselves. Of course, another good one is humour. And a few laughs and giggles are a surefire way to strengthen your bond with others. And then finally, strategic mimicry. We are all social animals, and given time, the syncing of body language with the others around us is going to happen anyway. So don't feel uncomfortable by mimicking someone else's body language.